Good morning, wife.
Hello. Hi,
Thanks for
honey.
joining me. Today we have a special guest, my wife Hannah, and we'll be talking about five eye-opening retirement savings facts and stats. So even I was surprised by some of these numbers. Let's talk about how, or just how poorly we as Americans are saving for retirement. So this is a little bit of a downer topic, but sweetheart, I know you're kind of more of the saver in our household. So what did you think of these stats in general before we jump into it?
I thought it was alarming because, like you said, I love to save and I'm very preoccupied with saving. And when I saw these, I thought this can't be. I mean, how is everyone going to retire?
Yeah. Yeah. So let's without keeping
Yeah.
the listeners in suspense, let's get into some of these alarming stats. So number 1, did you know that 33% of Americans or one third of all Americans have less than $5,000 in retirement savings?
Yeah, that's not good.
Well,
When I
before we
saw that though,
Mhm.
can I just say when I saw that I wondered to myself, or maybe this is the optimist in me, does that mean that they have other savings, just not retirement savings?
So I was let's pull that let's pull, continue pulling on that string. Okay, let's assume that the stat is based on adult Americans at least, so we can knock out kids, right?
Mhm.
And folks who are already retired. So what would you say the working age? What would you say would be potentially the sample group here? Ages 20 to 60, right?
Sure, yeah.
So if you take a third of that 40-year range, you're having a bunch of people who are still in their early to mid 20s. And I don't know,
Right.
somebody in their 20s having 5,000 or less than 5,000 isn't that alarming? Would you agree with that?
That's true. Yeah, they have
Yeah.
plenty more time, and their income is lower, so
Yeah.
it's less surprising that they would have less savings.
So depending on how they approach this, how they got to that one third number, it might not be that ridiculous, you know.
Mhm. Yeah, I guess so. And maybe there are people saving for quote unquote retirement, but in different vehicles, like they're not tracked in 401ks or IRAs.
It might be
So
their
how do we
house.
know?
Yeah, yeah,
That's true. They could
yeah,
be relying on something else on for their retirement.
yeah. I mean that big pile of lottery tickets that could be it, you know.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Okay,
Sure.
so number two eye-opening retirement stat. It's kind of building on what we just talked about. 21% or about one in five have no savings at all. Okay. And I want to
Yeah.
compare this to another stat that about 13% of Americans are below the poverty line. So
Mm.
again, if you're below the poverty line, it's not alarming. It wouldn't be alarming to say that you have no savings, right? I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously. But I do wonder, though, if people who are not making any income at all or, very much below the poverty line, if they were even included in the 21%.
Okay. Fair point. Fair. So let's assume that 20% is folks who are, I guess, working, right? And not on public assistance. Let's just make that assumption for
Have
now. Yeah.
some form of income.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one in five,
And
but
that's
using
not
the
good.
same, yeah, using the same math as before, assuming it's people ages 20 to 60, 20% would be about 8 years worth of folks, right? So that would be 20 to 28. Not so shocking if people from 20 to 28 have no savings. Maybe they're in med school, maybe they're, whatever, right?
Right. I
Sorry, I'm just
guess.
trying to, I like to think
I don't
contrarian.
know. That makes me very nervous. For someone like me, even when you're 22, 25, I
Yeah.
feel like some buffer, a little bit, put away, $50 a month. But then again, I don't want to be insensitive to the people out there who are working minimum wage and struggling. I mean, they're probably just trying to keep food on the table.
And just, I'm with you. I'm not trying to rationalize or justify, but I'm trying to make, I guess, dampen the edges on these stats because they do seem quite alarming. But I agree that you should try your best to never give up an IRA contribution year or a 401 contribution year. Those years you can never get back. So yeah, even if you're in your early
Hmm.
20s, figure out a way to contribute.
Yeah.
Okay, number 3. So here's the number. The number that we're thinking about is $50,000. Okay. And that number represents the median household retirement savings. So does that make you feel a little better? 50,000 is the median household retirement savings?
No, it doesn't. I think because, but then again, I'm an aggressive an obsessive saver, so my standards are a little different. Also, I think that I see things a little differently because we live in New York City, and I know that the price of things here are much higher than, let's say, if we were living in, I don't know, Middle America or Arkansas, somewhere else other than a major metropolitan city. In New York, $50,000 for a household that I assume is the traditional couple with maybe a kid or two, I don't think that's a whole lot.
But I mean, when you're talking retirement savings, you're saving for two people at most, right? I mean, retirement savings is not what you're going to use to support your kids.
Is this 50,000 median for each person?
No, it's household retirement savings.
So 25 each potentially.
Right, for a couple. Right.
Yeah, no, that does not sit well with me. Now, is that depending on how old you are too? How much time do you have? If you have 50,000 and you are 25 years old, you're off to a decent start, right?
Right. So,
but if you're 63,
yeah, you're kind of late in the game for sure.
Yeah.
But so they pulled out the stats by generation. I mean, this is really not precise, but let's just do it anyway. So millennials currently they have the lowest median retirement savings, and they're at $23,000. But of course, they also have the most time to compound.
Right.
Gen Xers are at $66,000, and Boomers, who are probably, if not retired, really close, are at $152,000.
Oh, boy. Yeah, I mean, I guess this depends on how your standard of living, where you live, and your consumption levels. But 152 also doesn't sound very secure for baby boomers, right? So based on baby boomer generation, I think that if you assume 65 is the typical retirement age, I think it still is, then the last of the baby boomers will be retiring in 10 years, in 2029. That's not a whole lot of time, 10 years to grow, what did you say, 152K?
152, rule of thumb, it should double, so it should be about 300 by then.
I guess if you assume that they own a house outright, there's no mortgage, no other debt, they have a pretty minimal house lifestyle.
Living expenses. Yep.
Yeah, and it's just food, a little bit of leisure. I guess it's not so bad, but again, if you're living in New York City, I don't know if that would. I don't think that would stretch.
No, you're right. It totally depends on. This country seems to have sort of pockets that are just sort of way out of whack with, I'd say, the vast majority of the rest of the country. And we just happen to live in one of them. So I do think for most Americans, being able to retire with $300,000 plus Social Security, that's probably maybe not lap of luxury, but that's probably comfortable. I would guess.
You think so?
Yeah.
I mean, assuming longer life expectancy these days, it would probably have to stretch.
Yeah,
maybe
that's a good question.
Upwards of 30 years or more.
Yeah, well, you know me. I'm pretty sure there's going to be some sort of universal income by then, but we'll talk about that another time.
Yeah, so you're very much like the utopian future idealist. Everything will be okay. I'm more like the nervous Nelly of save everything you've got because I don't know what's going to happen. So it's interesting, the two of us.
And by the way,
I also
I was just going to say, we will be talking in a future episode about how to calculate what you ought to be saving as an aggregate amount, which would be really relevant to evaluating these numbers.
Yeah, that would be helpful. And I would love, I've never seen an article where they've broken down average retirement savings by location, like by city.
Oh, okay.
Because I would love to know, what are my peers saving where I live? What's the comparable? Not where people are in Texas or Florida, because it's a totally different lifestyle, totally different cost of living. I would love to compare as much as possible apples to apples, similar age bracket, similar lifestyle, and similar sort of location, general location, even if it's another major city. It doesn't have to be New York. Because when they lump all the numbers in like this and they say, in the United States, nationally, the average is X, I'm like, I don't know if that applies to, depending on, again, where you are. I don't know if that's very helpful.
I agree that would be useful information. I just wonder how difficult it would be to gather that. Just think about our city, in New York as an example. we probably have peers and friends who maybe have not as many or not as aggressive at savings for various reasons.
Sure.
Maybe they were in a startup situation for many years and they have a huge payout coming on later, potentially, but they just don't have a 401k, or just, it can be so many reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. Or they're supporting their parents, or they have more kids than us, or
Right.
yeah.
Or they're in the
right.
arts, like they're actors or actresses, and they're pursuing what they love and not necessarily, pursuing a 401k. I don't know.
Okay.
All right. So the fourth eye-opening retirement savings fact and stat. The key number here is 24 billion. This billion with a B. 24 billion. This is kind of sad to me. That's the amount of unclaimed 401k matches that go through every year. That's just
Okay,
sad.
that's ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay, just
That is
Hannah, can you explain,
beyond
just for anyone who
ridiculous.
doesn't know, what that means?
Most companies will offer you essentially free money based on what you put into your 401k. So let's say you put in $100 and they match, let's say, usually there's a cap. For example, in my company, they will match up to 6% of your contribution, 50 cents to the dollar. Okay, so essentially 3% of your contribution. That's free money. That's
In the
money
example
that
you
you're
gave,
leaving on
how
the
much?
table.
Yeah, how much are we talking about?
Sorry?
Yeah, how much money are we talking about in absolute dollars?
Well, it depends on how much you're putting in.
Yeah.
It depends on your income.
Yeah. So if
Yeah,
you put in
so
like
everyone's formula is a
$10,000,
little
how much
different.
free money are you foregoing there?
If you put in 10,000
Yeah.
a year, you would be for my company. It would be 300, I guess. But if you've been here longer, they will do the full match, which is 6% here. And each company is different, so that would be 600. But if you are making more money and your contribution percentage is higher, then obviously your match sort of corresponds with that. So
I'm going to try to simplify that real quick. So if somebody puts in, is
Yeah.
contributing, let's say $10,000 to their 401k, and their employer is matching 1-for-1 or 50 cents to the dollar, you're losing free money from your company of potentially $10,000 or even $5,000, right? Is that about right? That's
Yeah,
going
that's
into
right.
your 401k for you.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you lower your taxable income, which is a whole different sort of benefit. But in any event, if you are getting free money anywhere just to save for your future, why would you give that up?
So on average,
Even if it's $10 a month that you save, some people say they can't afford to put money aside. But, I think when you get a raise at your job, instead of consuming that raise, if you already have a decent sort of lifestyle and you're not living at the poverty line, obviously, put that increase in your retirement savings instead of using it.
So just to throw some numbers on this stat, again, 24 billion in unclaimed free money through your 401k. The typical employee is basically just not taking $1,300 per year. That's insane. And if you compound that over the average career of 20 years, they're basically giving up $43,000 from their retirement fund. You are giving up a free $43,000 for your retirement. So that's just really frustrating, yeah?
Yeah, and you know what? I just realized how silly of me. While I'm playing with the numbers in my head, I'm thinking of, so the numbers that I gave you are completely wrong. Because I was thinking of what you can put in. The point is, the match is usually higher than the numbers that I gave you. So it all depends on your company.
Yeah.
But for example, when you said 10,000, it would be much more in terms of the match in most cases. So it's definitely more than the few hundred that I said. Sorry about that.
Yeah. No, we get that. So it's just a lot of money that you're giving up. So don't do that.
Yeah, it's basically like if you, even on a conservative match, if you put in 10K, you'll probably get about 5K.
Yeah.
That's good money to get.
That's
just for
$5,000,
saving.
yeah. I mean, just think of
Yeah.
how much it would take you on your own to save, what is that, $60 a month? $600 a month? No, not 600. Yeah, $600 a month, right? Or
If you
400.
do it monthly, yeah.
Wow, our math is so bad.
It's about 420. You and
Yeah.
I are not good at math. Do not
Yeah.
throw numbers at me while we're on this call because I'm going to give all the wrong answers. But the point is, it's a
Yeah.
good chunk of money. It
Yeah.
really is a good chunk of
Good
money.
chunk of free
And if
money.
there's a
Free.
full match, like a dollar for dollar match, my old company did that.
Yeah.
dollar for dollar, you put in 10,000, it immediately doubles to 20,000. Now,
like
the only thing is, I think that the younger generation has a tendency to move jobs a little bit more frequently, and there is a vesting period where companies will require you to stay with their company for a certain number of years. It's typically like 3 years.
Okay.
So if you're going to jump after 1 year, you still get your contribution, and you can just roll it over to another account, but the match won't come with you. So that you kind of have to stay a little bit.
That's actually an interesting factoid that could explain a lot of that.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, moving on. The final eye-opening retirement savings fact and stat. 29%. 29% is the percentage of Americans who have oh man, this is frustrating. No, is the 29% of Americans have taken early withdrawals from their retirement accounts. Ugh. Can you explain quickly what that means? What's an early withdrawal and why it's not good?
I would assume you have some sort of emergency or need to pay off something else, and so you just pull out the money from your 401k or your IRA. You get penalized. I think it's 10% penalty.
Yep.
Which sucks. And then you kind of put yourself back a little bit, right? Because you want that money to compound over the next few years and grow for you. So taking it out is not really the best plan. This is why I wonder, when we say retirement savings, do people generally also have an emergency savings, or do they have an emergency savings first before they contribute to a 401k or IRA, or what do you think is the best approach? Because it doesn't seem smart to only save in retirement and then pull out of there when there's this sort of life emergency that comes up.
Yeah, the rule of thumb is to have 6 months of expenses in liquid cash, like in a non-retirement, non-IRA account that you can just always have ready. But then after you've sort of you have that buffer, is when you start maxing out your IRAs, 401ks, all that good stuff. But that's just the rule of thumb. And then, as we just talked about, the stats may not bear that out. The reality may not bear that out. So, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense, though. I think emergency savings first. But what about for the young people out there who are making, they're just starting off and they're not making a whole lot of money and they only have a small amount to spare every month to save? Do you still think they should put that entirety into emergency savings versus a little bit in, let's say, 401k to get a match?
So if you're lucky enough to have financially secure parents, I would go so far as to borrow from them to fund your IRAs and pay them back later. I would go so far as to, if you can get a 0% interest credit card thing, do that. I know that sounds contrary to a lot of advice out there about never doing. Yeah, you can never get contribution years back. And again, this is under the assumption that you're the kind of person who will always be stacking and growing your earning potential. If you're taking flyers on like .coms or startups or whatever, maybe that might not be the best strategy. But if you're confident you're going to be on an upward trajectory and you can eventually pay these things back, those contribution years are one of those few things that, like a lot of things that are time related, you'll just never get back.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like when we were younger and you and I had just gotten married, maybe the first couple of years of our marriage, there was a year where it was a little tight, and you suggested we take money out of our emergency savings and put it into one of our IRAs. And I was like, what? Don't touch my savings. But then, you explained it and it made sense. So I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, there's some things that you can just never get back. And so far, until we have time machines, we'll never have time back. So, yeah. Cool. So that's it. Those are the 5 eye-opening retirement stats and facts. Hopefully I didn't bring you down too much and instead motivated you all to just take a look at your savings and make sure you're on pace. Thank you, my lovely wife, Hannah. And we'll talk to you guys next time. Take care.
Bye.